This could pay for itself in just a very short time.
I'm Lorella. This is Plan B Orchard and Farm, where we're all about helping you take small, manageable steps towards a more peaceful and sustainable lifestyle.
Today I want to talk to you about how easy it is to set up your very own indoor seed starting station. I can't believe I said that without tripping over it. I don't know about you, but when I was in elementary school, as we call it here, I think in other places they might call it primary school, we had a unit on the life cycle of a plant. And I was so excited to take that little bean and put it in my paper cup and watch it every day for it to sprout and get to take it home and show my mom and dad. Did you guys do that? Well, we learned then that what a plant needs to grow is air and light, water and soil, right? And you know what? It's pretty much the same thing as an adult. If we provide what the seeds need, they will sprout and grow. When it comes to setting up an indoor place to grow your plants, it can be a little bit overwhelming and intimidating. But the thing I want to encourage you is that you can do this little by little over time. You don't have to get everything at once. And that's a great thing about this kind of setup. Some of the reasons that we grow inside are to extend our growing season, right? Because you can plant a little bit now and a little bit in 2 weeks. And then in 3 weeks, you can plant some more and maybe start some outside. And then by the time your last frost has come, your plants, your seedlings are going to be big enough to plant outside. So you get a little bit of a head start and you get a longer harvest. And that longer harvest means less money at the grocery store. So this could pay for itself in just a very short time. So what are some of the things that you're going to want to think about when you go to set up your indoor growing space? First of all, is you want to think about the space you have. If you're just starting out, you can even start seeds in a sunny south-facing window, and you can have really good luck with that. You can start on a countertop or a table. But if you're really ready to get a lot of seeds started indoors, a rack like this is a good way to get started. We planned our house with the view in mind out our windows and not for gardening, and our south wall has 0 windows in it because it's in our garage. So I am here in a little corner of the laundry room that I have taken over. It doesn't have to be a real big space. You could start with a countertop or a table, or what I suggest is a shelving unit. These are great because you can manage the distance between the shelves, which will give you space for growing plants at different stages. Now, plants need light to grow, and we all know that the perfect light, of course, is sunlight. So when I started with a daylight spectrum shop light, and that works really well. And then the next year I added these lights that are specifically made for growing plants, and what I really love about them is they're pretty compact and they can daisy chain together, so the lights only take 1 outlet per light to run the whole shelf length of them. I think this year I might add a timer so that I can make sure they get 12 hours of light every day. It's not necessary though. I mean, really, how hard is it to walk in the room and turn them on and then at night turn them off? It's not that big of a deal, really. And if they get a little extra sunlight, it's not going to hurt them. If they don't get enough sunlight, it's a little bit of a problem, but it's not going to be a huge problem if it's not happening all the time. Another thing that you want to think about in your grow room is temperature. You want to be able to maintain a nice warm temperature for your plants to grow. So you can do that if you can control the heat in the room itself. You can just crank the heater up. You can put in a little space heater, or you can get these heat mats like I've got. I ordered these off Amazon, and they're not super expensive. They do not have a temperature control on them. They're a constant temperature. There are heat mats you can get where you can actually adjust the temperature of the mat, but they cost quite a bit more. And for me, at the time, it just wasn't worth the expense. These have worked really well for me. There are certain plants, such as peppers and tomatoes, that really like the soil to be nice and warm before they'll germinate. So if you're going to grow things like that, I'd suggest getting one of these mats. I will put an affiliate link in the description down below. All right, so we've got lighting, we've got heat. You're going to need some kind of soil mixture. There's different kinds out there. I'll go more into how I'm growing in my next video when I actually start some seeds. You're going to need water and a way to drain your water. So there's several different ways you can do that. I started actually with this water pitcher right here. It doesn't work so great. I think it would be better if I had a watering can with a long spout on it. And this year I'm actually going to invest in a little hand sprayer so that I can mist the plants and make sure that I don't overwater them, especially when they're still in seed form and they're just getting ready to germinate. How you water will also be affected by what kind of supplies you have. So I use these trays from Johnny's Seed Company. They do not have holes in the bottom, but they have these little like water trough things in the bottom. I wish I knew a better word for that. Chris, can you think of a better word for these little, like, water, where the water goes?
All the lines that run.
Yeah, because it's like, it's raised and lowered, so that the plant sits above it and the water's underneath.
Reservoir.
That's a good word, reservoir. So it's got this reservoir that runs underneath all your plants, so the plants can soak up the water they need from the bottom. This method really works for me. I use soil blocks some years, but you could also have cell packs, which is what they call those plastic trays that have the little individual sections for plants. And then you put water in here, you dip your cell pack in here, and once your cell pack has soaked up enough water, then you move the cell pack out, and that way you're not overwatering. But then, where are you going to set that now cell pack that might drip out the bottom? So you want to think about that, about your flooring and how you're going to protect it. So these, I grow in these and it works pretty well for me. Some of the other supplies that you're going to need or want to have might be gloves to work with, might be a table or a counter where you can actually work on putting your seeds in your trays before you put them on here. I have an old card table that was gifted to me, and I just set it up when I'm using it, and when I'm not, it goes back against the wall. So anything like that will work. Anything that you can do to make your seed starting experience easier, do it. And like I said, you don't have to do it all at once, so don't worry about it if you don't have it right now. You're also going to need some way to mark your plants, because you think you're going to remember what you plant. At least I do, and then no, I don't, and it's going to be a surprise vegetable. So it's always a good idea to mark them. In the past, I've used these popsicle sticks, which I'll probably still use inside, but when I used these outside, they got really weathered really quickly. The writing washed off. Even though I used a permanent marker, they just would start to degrade, which is good. I mean, that's good. They're biodegradable, right? But it's not good for in the garden when 4 months later your plant is not marked. Hopefully by then you got fruit and you know what it is. But you know what I mean? So I think in the garden I'm going to go to these plastic markers. I picked these up at the dollar store. So they end up being about 10 cents each after, because they're 10 for $1. So I grabbed a bunch of these. I'm going to try them in the garden and see how they are. But regardless, you still want a way to mark your plants. I like to mark on there when the seeds were sowed also, so I can kind of keep track of things. Oh, speaking of keeping track, I also like to use a notebook or a journal to record everything I plant, when I plant it out, and how much I harvest. I just like to know the numbers. If you're growing a home garden and it's just for your own enjoyment, it's not necessary for you to do that. I like to know how much I'm putting up and how much return I'm getting for the investment of my grow system. So the less money I have to spend at the grocery store this year, the more pounds of vegetables that I harvest year after year, the more this investment pays for itself, right? Because you're thinking, oh, that's a lot of money to put out all at once. And it can be, but if you use it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, this shelf will have cost almost pennies on the day or less than that. It's really a setup that you can use now and in the future, and you can move it with you if you move to a new location. So that's really a good way to go, I think. For me, this was really the way to go because it was less expensive than a greenhouse, and I also don't have to worry about the winds. I would really love to have a permanent greenhouse with glass windows, and it would be lovely at some time, but that's a lot of time and expense that you're talking about to put something together like that. And we had a plastic greenhouse that we made before, like we've seen people do, with cattle panels and plastic, and boy, our Missouri winds just tore that thing apart. So that didn't really work for me. This has been a great growing solution for me. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in my indoor seed starting area today. And if you click right here, you can see how I organize all my seeds. Have a great week.